2, 1.
You can talk first.
I don't really need to count down, probably.
No, you don't have to count down. It's fine.
Okay. Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. If you're tuning in this week, we are going to continue our discussion of the book of Isaiah. I'm Keith, and this is Logan, of course. Last week, we discussed Isaiah chapter 1, and we got all the way through Isaiah verse 16 of chapter 1.
Hey.
Well, we actually got a little bit further, but we're going to do a little backtracking today. We're going to start in verse 16, and I've got some notes here somewhere if you want me to recap what we talked about last week.
Sure.
That might be
I titled it, I don't know if you saw this when I posted it, called
it
Getting Clean Part 1.
I did see that. Just so you know, I'm not actually watching our classes because
because you lived it.
I lived it, and I really hate listening to myself. Sorry if I'm making a lot of noise here. I got to try and find there's our class right here. In addition to that, I want to apologize, as anybody that lives in the city of Muskogee knows, it's pouring cats and dogs, and along with that comes a lot of thunder, so you might be getting some background noise. We're going to try and push through it. So last week we talked about Isaiah chapter 1, and these are the notes I took. Specifically that the book was concerning Judah, right? It took place during the time of the kings Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. God is speaking to all creation, right? God is speaking to all creation. And then some notes that I took that you had said, and I liked some of your quotes here. Our walk doesn't have to be a tragedy. Our life doesn't have to be a tragedy, right? Mm-hmm. And that's in reference to God saying, "Why should you continue to suffer?" Right, or something along those lines.
Yeah. Why do I need to keep punishing you?
Yeah.
He uses the word.
Why will you be struck down? Yeah.
I read it over again, and at least in the New King James, I don't know if it does in the ESV, but it says again, as in he's done this over and over and over again, and it's like, why does it have to keep happening? Go ahead.
Israel had failed to credit God. Speaks for itself there. Then I wrote down daughter of Zion, but we were rushed for time, so I didn't get to specifically write down what the meaning for this was. Daughter of Zion, at some point he says, and the daughter of Zion is left like a booth in a vineyard. Yeah, that's what we did. You want to elaborate on what I was thinking there? No.
There was a part there that we did some guessing. We did some, I think, educated guessing. There's a couple of there's a few things in here that we need to study some more. I think that's okay, though. I mean, that shouldn't dissuade us from wanting to continue on. I think a lot of people maybe, I think I used to do this. You get to a point where you don't understand something, and so you stop until you understand it, but then you never come to understand it, so you never keep going. Well, let's just be okay with that for now.
Sure.
I think that term, daughter of Zion, is going to keep coming up. And maybe it's going to have some significance, but maybe not. I'm
going to have to get a different notebook here at some point. Because my notebook is kind of trash. And the last point, meaningless worship is meaningless.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
There we have that. Let me run down here to my floor and grab my other notebook, and then we'll pick it back up.
Is that where you keep your notebooks?
I have very limited house space, so I keep everything. If you can't see it, but I keep everything
on the floor.
I keep everything this way and down of my kitchen table.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is in the corner of the floor right here. Maybe someday I'll be a big shot and have a house like you. But
oh no, I got my Bible wet with my water. That's not good. Okay. So today we're going to pick up with part 2 of this getting clean idea. And everything led up to that point in Isaiah chapter 1. You've got this idea that you've got a sick people, and they're sick because they're dirty. Okay, we'll put that. But it's their sin that's making them sick. And there's no soundness in them. There's no wellness. There's no part of them that is even remotely healthy. And so this chapter is extremely practical. God says, you have abandoned me. You've gone in a different direction. Look at what all of that has resulted in. You see that in verse 7 through 9. And now in verse 10, he's saying, let's have a, listen to me. I don't want to get it confused with verse 18, which I think they're both an appeal. Verse 10 and verse 18. In verse 10, he's saying, listen to me. You're not listening to me. I need you to listen to me. And he explains to them that the stuff that they are doing is it's not doing what they think it's doing. They think that it's cultivating a relationship. It's not. The relationship is dead. They think that they're pleasing God. They're not. God is not pleased at all. They think that they're being genuine. They're not. They're being completely hypocritical. So God is saying, you need a wake-up call. I'm here to wake you up. Pay attention. Listen to me. Verse 11 through 15, unwanted worship, unwanted from God. God doesn't want it. We don't like to hear that. Is there worship out there that people are doing that God just does not want? Has there been worship in my life that I have worshiped that God did not want? I think so, because I think that I didn't do it the way that he wanted me to do it. And so it's a daily, it's a daily thing. It's a weekly thing where I observe myself. I observe what I'm doing, and I ask, am I doing it the way he wants me to do it?
And there could be a point where you're doing everything correctly, but with the wrong mindset, right? That was kind of what we were getting at there with the meaningless worship being meaningless.
That's right. That's right. And I think that's something, we both grew up in the Church of Christ, and we take great pride, I think, in our acts of worship. We have, I think we have correctly summarized them into 5. At least in the corporate assembly, and we've summed it up with these acts of worship, and we take great pride in the fact that we can worship God in spirit and in truth, precisely how he has instructed us to do it. But we need to be careful, because the Jews in Isaiah chapter 1 were doing that. They took great pride in the fact that they were doing things in the ways that God wanted them to do it. The days, the seasons, the months, the ceremonies, the celebrations, all of it, their calendar. If you looked at their calendar from the last 5 years, they had a check mark on all the required things that they were supposed to do. Right? That approach, marking it off of your calendar, is not what God is looking for.
Yeah.
He's not looking for, okay, show me your calendar for the last 5 years. Okay. All right. You were there every week. You sang every week. You took the Lord's Supper every week. It's actually much deeper than that, because he knows what's in your heart, and he knows what's going on in your life, and he knows what you do between worship services. You can't hide it from him. And if it's not the same individual that walks into the church building, that walks out of the church building, and that lives in life, if it's not the same person, God says, I don't want what you have to bring. I want the same individual through and through. And it needs to be somebody who is not sick, but somebody who's clean and healthy. And so this is where we get into verse 16. Get clean, get healthy, get sound. And wash yourself, because the filth, it doesn't belong in the presence of God. Okay. And is it okay for him to say that and expect that? Why?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why? We're people, we're humans, we make mistakes, and that's all understood. But is this expectation that he's setting for us for authenticity, of living a righteous life consistently, is that a reasonable expectation?
Am I good? I think that the expectation is absolutely warranted, especially when you consider the alternative. Basically, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much to ask, I don't think.
Okay.
Are you specifically referencing our lives now, or are you talking about this call to them? Okay, so I definitely think that the expectation of us to want to try to be better, and have a desire to live a more authentic life,
right?
I definitely think that's one that well, I mean, and God says it, so it's hard to argue against that, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think that that's too much to ask at all, for the desire to be there to change.
Yeah. And I think these people that he's talking to have just completely stopped trying.
Yeah. So I don't know that the thing is so much that we have to live this perfect life. I just think that the effort to strive to has to be there, and the will to strive to. And I think that Israel at this point, or Judah at this point in time, has lost. Well, and Israel also has lost all effort. They don't even care anymore. They're apathetic, right?
Which is interesting, because we wouldn't say that about Hezekiah. And this may be an earlier prophecy, like during the Isaiah years, but and it would probably do us good to go back there and see how those kings reigned. Were they living in that way?
Yeah.
Ahaz had moments of weakness. I think it's safe to conclude that he wasn't a good king. Who's the first one? In Jerusalem, who's the first king that it mentions there in Isaiah?
Oh, I'm sorry, I blacked out. Uzziah.
Isaiah. Okay, let's see if I can find him real quick. Athaliah, and then there's going to be Jehoahaz, and then Jehoash, and then Amaziah, and then Azariah. All these people are in Israel. Ahaz, Jotham. Who does it say?
Uzziah.
Uzziah.
Around 740 BC would be when he died.
What verse does it give in your liner notes? 2 Chronicles?
Let me see. King Uzziah. Yeah, C is going to be 2 Kings 15.
Okay, I'm here. And we're looking in Judah. Okay, Uzziah must be the same name as Azariah. Sometimes that happens where a king is given.
2 Chronicles 26 also.
Let's see. Okay, let's read about this guy for a second, because I think this is relevant. In the 27th year of Jeroboam, king of Israel. Okay, that's not mentioned in Isaiah. It is mentioned in Hosea, though. Hosea, if you saw the sermon this last Sunday, Jeroboam, king of Israel, is going to be at the same time. So
that'd be Jeroboam the second, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which would be at the same time as at Jonah, if I'm correct.
Jonah?
Yeah, I think Jonah lived during the reign of Jeroboam II. But anyway, go ahead. You keep going. I'll look that up.
Okay, look it up. In the 27th year of Jeroboam, king of Israel, Azariah, who again I think is the same as Uzziah, the son of Amaziah, king of Judah, became king. He was 16 years old when he became king, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jechaliah of Jerusalem, and he did what was right in the sight of the Lord. Okay? According to all that his father Amaziah had done. Okay, so apparently Amaziah was good too. Except, okay, there's an exception here, that the high places were not removed. The people still sacrificed and burned incense on the high places. I think this is still a consequence of kind of the whole Athaliah thing, and how Athaliah's mother I'm drawing a blank here. Ahab's wife was
Jezebel.
Okay, so the paganism that she brought into the northern kingdom, and then that paganism that was introduced into the southern kingdom as well, it kind of seeped in. Um, verse 5 in chapter 15 of 2 Kings. Then the Lord struck the king so that he was a leper until the day of his death. So he dwelt in an isolated house. And Jotham, the king's son, was over the royal house, judging the people of the land. Now the rest of the acts of Azariah and all that he did, are they not written in the book of Chronicles of the king of Judah? So Azariah rested with his fathers, and they buried him with his fathers in the city of David. Then
that's going to have to
Jotham,
be Uzziah.
Yeah. Yeah, because Uzziah, Azariah, same name, and then the son is Jotham. Okay, so I don't know.
By the way, Jonah does take place in the reign of Jeroboam II.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting, because
782 to 753 BC.
Because I'm in 2 Kings chapter 15 reading about Uzziah, and the reign of the dynasty of Jehu is about to end in chapter 15, but Israel is going to be carried away in chapter 17 by the Assyrians, which is who God sends Jonah to.
Yep.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, I love that. Okay, so I don't know about you, but I'm interested in. We read about Uzziah's reign. He was a good king, but he didn't take down the high places, and so God struck him with leprosy. All right, so I'm interested in now Jotham, who is the son of Uzziah. In the second year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, the king of Israel, Jotham, the son of Uzziah. Oh, see, there it says Uzziah.
Yeah.
Interesting. King of Judah began to reign. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jerusha, the daughter of Zadok. I wonder if that's the same as the...
Yeah.
Anyways. And he did what was right in the sight of the Lord. Okay, where's my pen here? I didn't underline that, as is typical for me to do. Right in the sight of the Lord. He did according to all his father Uzziah had done. However, the high places were not removed. Okay, we still have this pagan influence.
Yep.
Yeah, we still have this pagan influence in the place. So let's be clear here. Do we understand what we're talking about when we're talking about high places?
Right. Yeah, these are the places that they would go to worship the pagan gods.
Yeah. Okay. So they would have these shrines.
They're kind of keeping a little paganism on the side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe not full out paganism, but it's like, well, we'll still go.
They're dipping their toe in it.
They're dipping their toe in the paganism.
Okay, so that's interesting, because I think Christianity today, I think sometimes we take this idea of we're not in the world. We're in the world, not of the world. And then we use that as a justification to do things that the world does.
Dip our toe into it.
Yeah, we dip our toe into it. That's right. Okay, verse 35. However, the high places were not removed. The people still sacrificed and burnt incense on the high places. What's wrong with burning incense on the high places?
Well, I mean, it's just an act of worship, right?
Okay, but what's wrong with it?
That it's going to a pagan god?
Let me ask this, okay? Because I think this is interesting. Jeroboam, when he went to the north, he separated the north from the south, okay, in the reign of Rehoboam. He didn't necessarily become pagan, necessarily.
Right.
His motivation was to allow worship for the people so that they didn't have to go where to worship? Jerusalem. So he built these calves, these golden calves, which I think he was asleep on that day during history class.
Yeah. That's a big no-no, right?
Yeah. And therefore, the worship of God took place to these golden calves. Not so much that he's trying to worship false gods, that he's trying to worship the true God through this golden calf, which is still kind of the same thing, because when you've changed God, it's not really God anymore.
Right.
So don't get me wrong. But at the same time, what if these high let me say this too. After uh, Joshua had conquered all of the western part of the Jordan, all, in other words, the Promised Land. The people that lived on the east side of the Jordan, that had their allotment on the east side of the Jordan, they built an altar on the east side of the Jordan. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if
they're in the book of Joshua.
Yeah, they're in the book of Joshua. I didn't want to lose my place in 2 Kings 16 here. Hold on. I'm sorry. Okay, let's see if I've got stuff to mark stuff. Okay, I've got Isaiah marked. I've got 2 Kings marked. Okay, Joshua. I want to see this because I think this is very interesting. Okay, when they came to the region of the Jordan, which is in the land of Canaan, the children of Reuben, the children of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh built an altar there by the Jordan, a great, impressive altar. Now the children of Israel heard someone say, behold, the children of Reuben. Is this falling?
Yeah, it looks like it's kind of dropped a little bit.
Okay. I might need to buy a new one of these. I've been saying that for years now. That's not any better.
Yeah, you're all right. We can see your face.
It doesn't matter. Now the children of Israel heard someone say, behold, the children of Reuben, the children of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh have built an altar on the frontier of the land of Canaan in the region of the Jordan on the children of Israel's side. And when the children of Israel heard of it, the whole congregation of the children of Israel gathered together at Shiloh to go to war. Okay, so why are they going to war with these people that live on the east side of the Jordan that have built an altar? Why are they going to war?
I don't know.
Okay, let's keep reading.
Is it because they didn't build an altar to God?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, then the children of Israel sent Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the priest, to the children of Reuben, to the children of Gad, and to the half-tribe of Manasseh, into the land of Gilead. And with him 10 rulers, one ruler each from the chief house of every tribe of Israel, and each one was the head of the house of his father among the divisions of Israel. Then they came to the children of Reuben, to the children of Gad, and to the half-tribe of Manasseh, to the land of Gilead, and they spoke with them, saying, thus says the whole congregation of the Lord, what treachery is this that you have committed against the God of Israel, to turn away this day from following the Lord, in that you have built for yourself an altar that you might rebel this day against the Lord? Is the iniquity of Peor not enough for us? Okay, that's another event. It was
right.
Okay. From which we are not cleansed till this day, although there was a plague in the congregation of the Lord. But that you must turn away this day from following the Lord. And it shall be, if you rebel today against the Lord, that tomorrow he will be angry with the whole congregation of Israel. The fellowship of the entire people of God was now hanging in the balance.
Right.
Not just their relationship with God. Yes, that was hanging in the balance. But the fellowship with each other was hanging in the balance. This is why, okay, let me make a little bit of modern day application here. This is why in 1 John it says, walk in the light as he is in the light. And if we do, what's going to happen? We're going to have fellowship with one another. In other words, our relationship with each other is going to be sound. And also, we're going to be cleansed of our sins because of the blood of Christ. So our relationship with God is going to be okay. The minute you stop walking in the light, it threatens your relationship with the people of God, and it threatens your relationship with God. And so this is what is happening. My question is, why is it happening? What have they done that, in using Christian terminology, that has caused them to not be walking in the light in this moment? What about this building of the altar is such a problem? They say in verse 19, nevertheless, if the land of our possession is unclean, then cross over the land of the possession of the Lord, where the Lord's tabernacle stands, and take possession among us. But do not rebel against the Lord, nor rebel against us, by building yourselves an altar besides the altar of the Lord our God. Did not Achan the son of Zerah commit a trespass? Okay, again, he's using history. Okay, you saw this. This keeps happening. In the accursed thing, and wrath fell on all the congregation of Israel. And that man did not perish alone in his iniquity. Okay? All right. They respond in verse 22, the Lord God of gods, the Lord God of gods. Repetition. This is a very passionate response. They're very serious about this response.
Mm-hmm.
They have been accused of something very serious. Okay? I don't think we've gotten to the bottom of why it's serious, but we're going to. But it's extremely serious. They built something besides what exists in the tabernacle. And it's not only are they on the brink of civil war, but they're on the brink of being punished by God.
Right.
He knows, God knows, and let Israel itself know. If it is in rebellion or if in treachery against the Lord, do not save us this day. If we have built ourselves an altar to turn from following the Lord, or if to offer on it burnt offerings or grain offerings, or if to offer peace offerings on it, let the Lord himself require an account. But in fact, we have done it for fear, for a reason, saying, in time to come, your descendants may speak to your descendants, saying, what have you to do with the Lord God of Israel? For the Lord has made the Jordan a border between you and us, you children of Reuben and Gad, and have no part in the Lord. So your descendants would make our descendants cease fearing the Lord. Therefore we said, let us now prepare to build ourselves an altar, not for burnt offerings nor for sacrifice, but that it may be witness between you and us and our generation after us, that we may perform the service of the Lord before him with our burnt offerings, with our sacrifices, and with our peace offerings, that your descendants may not say to our descendants in times to come, you have no part in the Lord. Okay. So why did they do it? Did you get that?
Yeah. Well, kind of.
Okay, that's okay. Let's do some comprehension here. Why did they do it? They left the West. The conquest is over for now. They're going to the allotted territories. The people that have allotted on the east side of the Jordan are going back home. They build this altar. It's almost a civil war. And they say, no, we didn't do it for the reason you're accusing of us. This is the reason we did it. Why did they do it?
Why? Where are we in Joshua, by the way?
We're in Joshua 22. And he gives the reason in verse 21,
right?
Yeah, beginning in 21 through 20.
And then the people of Reuben and Gad,
29.
He knows to do. Let it go. If we did so burnt offerings, no, but we did it from fear that in time to come your children might say to our children, what have you to do with the? Oh, they did it. They did it to ensure that they were children of God also, even though they're separated by the river, right?
Right. Okay. So it was a reminder. You have this natural border, which the Euphrates River was a natural border as well, between the Mesopotamia and the south. And so now you have this natural border of the Jordan, which was between the western tribes of Israel and the eastern. And they're saying there may come a point in the future where your people and our people get the wrong idea by why we were positioned the way we were.
Right.
And so we don't want people in the future to say, we don't have to go to the tabernacle to worship God. We don't want your people to say that. We don't want our people to say that. We don't want anybody to be confused. Even though we're on the east side of the Jordan, we still are going to go and worship God at the tabernacle. Now, compare and contrast here between that and Jeroboam for a second.
Right. Who Jeroboam says you don't have to worship at the tabernacle. Exactly what they thought would happen. Which, by the way, I want to be noted that their fear here is completely justified based on everything we've known, not just about what we know about Israel, but what they know about themselves from years past, right? It all makes it would make complete sense to them.
They're trying to act with wisdom. I don't think there's anything wrong with what they're doing. It was a big misunderstanding. And we could talk about misunderstandings in the church. It happens all the time. Communication needs to take place. Motivation is a huge part of behavior, and it needs to be considered. But the point the point we're trying to make is, what is so bad with building an altar and worshiping on it? If that's what the West thought that they were going to do.
Yeah.
What would be so bad with that? Why does that justify a civil war after just attaining the land? They literally said, look, if this is really going to be a problem, you move over here.
Yeah.
You move over here to the west side of the Jordan, because you're obviously being tempted to do this. So what is so wrong? I think if we get this, I think we're going to understand why the high places are such a big deal.
Yeah, because it's not where God wanted them to worship.
Bingo. So God is not saying, he's not saying, worship me however you want to worship me.
Right.
This is extremely important. I mean, it's like, yeah, but God, I want to worship you in the way I want to worship you. And God's literally saying, no.
Yeah.
How profound is that? He's literally saying, I don't want it.
And this is the issue we're running into in Isaiah.
Yes, it is the issue. And it's the issue we're running into in the kings of Isaiah. This is why I wanted to go back and look at those specific kings. I mean, what's so bad with Isaiah? I'm sorry. I'm getting it confused because he's got two names. What is so bad about Azariah? Why does he give him leprosy? And what's so bad with his son? And what's so bad? You know, it's like, why are you punishing like this? Why is this such a big deal? And it's important to remember back in Joshua that this was the reason for a civil war.
Yeah.
Again, misunderstanding. But when we get into the time of the kings, it's still important. It's still
going to be a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and people just aren't acknowledging how important it is. And so when we get in the time of Isaiah, it's not that God is speaking through Isaiah to necessarily bad kings. According to the kings, 2 Kings, they did right in the sight of the Lord. We're talking about good people,
right?
But what we're talking about is people that are people that are still are blinded in this idea that they can worship God however they want to worship him. And God is literally saying, I don't want it. I didn't ask for it. Don't bring it to me.
Right.
Very interesting. And so, but what I think is interesting, and I don't know, maybe you think this is interesting as well, is when he says in Isaiah chapter 1, there is no soundness in it.
Yeah.
And I thought we just read that Azariah and Jotham were good kings. It seems like there's some soundness in it.
Where are you seeing that, by the way?
Chapter
different.
1
it's
and
different
verse.
in mine.
That's okay. Verse 6. From the sole of the foot even to the head.
Even to the head, there is no soundness. No, it's not different than one. There is no soundness in it, but bruises and sores. Yeah, so it's what he seems to be describing is a complete and total lack of righteousness, right? So from the sole of the foot even to the head, there's no soundness, but bruises, sores, and raw wounds. They are not pressed out or bound up or softened with oil. They are completely and totally depraved here. Yeah. So how do you reconcile them being good kings with this, right?
I asked you first.
So what we're saying then is that what they're doing here is such a big deal, it's corrupting every part of them.
It's like, and he's going to get a little bit into more of this, but it's like when your relationship with God is not the way it needs to be, it sinks into every aspect of your life.
Yeah, so think about when you're buying food, right?
Yeah.
Think about if you get a loaf of bread. I don't know about you. Maybe other people are different about this. But when I get a loaf of bread, if a piece of bread has a little bit of mold on it, I usually throw the whole loaf out.
I throw the whole loaf out.
Whether they all have mold on it or not, the capacity for them to is there.
I'm sure there are people out there that say, oh, just take the mold off.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Not doing it.
I get sick thinking about it.
Because the capacity for mold is there in every loaf, right?
Yeah.
Or in every slice. So
that's right. Which is true for every loaf of bread, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they got to try really hard to not have mold.
They have potential. All bread has potential to mold, and all bread will eventually mold. But the thing about it is, yeah, a little bit sinks in, and all of a sudden it ruins the whole thing. You allow that toxin in, and it gets into every crevice. What is what is Jesus? What is his? Does he have illustrations? I think that talk about. Does he have illustrations that talk about how just a little bit of something can affect the whole?
Oh, I'm sure he does, but I'm not thinking of them off the top of my head. Give me just one second.
Think one that has to do with bread, because we're talking about bread. A little what?
Yeast.
Leaven.
Yeah, a little leaven.
A little leaven, yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit of it, and it gets it seeps in. It gets to all parts of it, and whether you're talking about interpreting scripture, understanding how you see things, how you understand things, the influence of the Pharisees. I think he used it in a couple different contexts, but I think the same is true.
Right.
If you allow it to seep in, it will affect the whole. And so being unhealthy in your life, in your spiritual life, it will affect every part of you. It'll affect the way you see things. It'll affect the way you handle things. I saw a movie. What was it called? I can't remember what it was called. It was about a basketball coach who loses his team, and he can't coach basketball anymore, so he coaches cross country. And
do
you know
is it the old one with Kevin Costner?
No. No, it's a newer movie, I think.
Oh, okay. I don't know what you're talking about.
But the cross country team only has one girl in it, and so
it's not really a team.
Yeah, it's not really a team. And so, but anyways, the message of the movie, and it was kind of a Christian-based movie, but the message of the movie was, if you don't put first things first, like God, it affects the way you see everything. And as a matter of fact, it changes who you are. And there's a question that is asked in the movie: who are you? Like, what defines you? What truly defines you? And what would you say? Well, you say, well, I've got, he answered, he said, well, I'm a basketball coach. Okay, but you take the basketball away, what are you? I'm a history teacher. Okay, well, you take that away, what are you? Well, I'm a cross country coach. Okay, you take that away, what are you? I'm a father. You take that away if you strip away all of these things, what's left? And he goes, well, I'm a Christian. And he goes, it's interesting to me how it took so long for you to say that. And when that light switch came on, he started seeing everything that he said. He started seeing it completely differently. He saw his coaching differently. He saw his teaching differently. He saw his family differently. It really does. It sinks in, and it affects every part of your life. And I think this is what has happened, and it has been allowed to happen in the people of God in the book of Isaiah. And it has gotten to the point where it's like you can't even recognize God in the society anymore. It's a progression.
Yep.
And so God makes this appeal in verse 10. Listen to me. He says this appeal in verse 16, actually multiple appeals. These are all appeals that he's making. Wash yourselves, make yourself clean. How do you do that? We talked about this last week. 1, you put away the evil things from your doing, from before your eyes. Get rid of things that are evil, that represent evil, that are wicked, that have associations with wickedness. Stop doing the wicked, the evil, the bad things. Okay. He's not going to make a list of what all those bad things are,
right.
But just stop doing them. Right. Easier said than done, right?
Right, for sure.
Especially when you have people that are just so, I don't know. What are some examples of these bad things, I guess, that people need to get out of their life?
Now,
Sure.
I mean, you could name just about anything, right?
Yeah. What's one?
Well, I think a big one, personally is, and I think this is one, I say this because it's one that I do, and I think everyone does, is just speaking when you don't need to speak. Talking about people, talking about situations that you have no actual bearing in, right? This is probably my biggest issue.
It's hard.
And I think that has become so normalized now.
It has.
And I don't want to diverge on a different
No, that's okay.
path,
Well,
but that's one thing. That's one thing to add on.
It starts as something innocent, right? And there, you might even at the onset have good intentions, but then it develops into something else. But if you're not careful, you don't realize that it's developing into something else. And then all of a sudden it becomes your culture of where you get to talk to people about other people or other events it does not belong to you. It's kind of like stealing. It's like one elder put it this way. If someone comes to him and tries to talk to him about someone else or something else or a story or something, he says, that's not my information to give. That's not my story to tell.
Yeah.
It doesn't belong to you. The information that's given to you or even that you get through the grapevine, it doesn't belong for you. It's almost like intellectual stealing,
Yeah, I saw the problem a lot, when I was in school and I'd tell someone something and then someone would eventually come up to me, surely enough, and say, why'd you say that about so-and-so? That's well, in my head, I'm thinking, well, I just told it to so-and-so. Why would they tell someone? And it happened over and over and over again. Yeah. You got to promise not to tell anyone. And then when someone tells someone, shocked, right?
And trust.
How do you stop that, right? You stop doing it in the first place.
What does that do to trust?
Yeah, it dissolves it.
I mean, it just obliterates it. It's like, imagine trust is that building and it's just completely collapses and it's. I
absolutely have. I had a good friend in my life, and we're still friends, but because of life,
it's never going to be the same.
Absolutely, right? It's well known. I just don't tell her anything. Just don't tell her anything that you don't want to be told to someone else.
That's right.
And yeah, and that's tough. And then, seeing that, I've got to, when I do something like that, I've got to think, do I want someone to say that about me? Do I want someone to tell their spouse that about me?
Think about that person. What is she going to have to do to now get that expectation
off of her record, right?
Yeah. How does she do that?
Well, I mean, she doesn't talk to me enough to do it anymore. I mean, we don't talk enough for that to happen. Yeah. But it would take a lot of close guarded. She would have to completely change, and I don't know that it could ever be completely.
It's never gonna be the same. It's not a problem of forgiveness. It's a problem of consequence. It's like, okay, I don't trust you anymore.
So I'm not mad at you about it anymore.
Yeah,
but
it's over. But I'm not. Our relationship is pretty much ruined because
in that regard.
Yeah.
Sure. Still, like I said, we're still friends and everything, but it's
okay. Yeah, sure. But what I'm talking about is, imagine being someone in the world coming to a church that does that. Can you even imagine?
For sure.
I mean, it's like, forget you people. I'm out of here.
Yeah. Why would they have?
Oh man, it is so damaging that, and it's something that Jesus takes very seriously. He really does. He takes extremely seriously. It's one of those things where it's like, he says on one occasion, it's better that you drown in an ocean. I mean, yeah. It's like, it's pretty harsh. It would be better that you would have never been born than to cause someone to stumble in that way. I think it's something that we really need to open our eyes to, and we need to make a wake-up call. It's a cultural poison that seeps into the church, and it makes the entire organism sick. Yeah, great example. So stop doing it, God says. Just quit it.
Yeah.
Don't do it anymore. It's not that you're not going to make mistakes anymore, but it is the urgency. It's how profound it's the potential, it's the damage, it's how bad it is. God's saying, listen to me, stop. You've got to stop. Verse 17. Go ahead. What's the next thing that he's appealing?
Yeah, learn to do good.
Okay. So let's take this gossiping as an example, because this is I think this is a big one. How do you just stop? How do you just stop something?
Yeah, that's tough. Right?
Yeah.
Because you can think of it as an addiction almost, right?
Yeah.
It's a way that your brain has been trained.
Yes.
Such that it becomes automatic, right?
It's like a brainwashing. It's like you don't even think about it. It's like you hit someone on the knee and their leg shoots up. It's like
no one really gets a kick out of it, right? No one wants to. I mean, no one wants to do it. No one's sitting there thinking, "Man, I can't wait to go gossip about this," right? But it's an instinctual thing. Question comes up: How do you stop that? I don't know. I've had success stopping. What?
What does he say in verse 17?
Yeah, learn to do good, seek justice.
Okay. Learn to do good. Let's talk about that for a second. There's no way we're going to get through chapter 1.
No way. We're probably going to get through a few minutes here.
My battery's going to die. I might need to switch cameras here. Think about this for a second. I was listening to Jordan Peterson, and he had dealt with a lot of people in addiction.
Yeah.
Especially people like drinking and things like that, alcohol. And it's like, if you go to someone that just drinks all the time and they're drunk all the time, and you say, stop drinking, okay, is that going to work?
No, absolutely.
Quit it. Stop it. It's hurting you. Stop. Don't do that. It's hurting people around you. Quit.
Because most of the time they probably don't want to do it anyway.
No, they don't.
Why?
Why don't they want to quit?
Well, no, I mean, I think there's people that don't want to quit, but I know,
but why?
Telling someone to stop.
Why
don't they want to quit?
Yeah.
Because they're addicted. They like what it does for them.
They like it. I mean, it's like
I'm just saying, if you're going somewhere to get help for your drinking and someone tells you stop drinking, it's the least helpful thing because you don't want to drink either. That's not the point. You know what I mean? The point isn't that I don't want to stop drinking.
There's a reason they keep going back to it.
Right.
It tastes good. It makes them feel good. It's something that they really, really like. The consequence of it is horrible, and I get that, but they like it. So what do you have to do? Someone who wants to stop doing it, what do they have to put in their lives to stop?
Something better.
Something better. They've got to get something in there that is better. And if they don't fill it with something much better, and it's got to be really good, because to them drinking is really good. It's got to be really good because it's got to be that thing where it's like, this is so much better. God is saying that here. He's not just saying stop. He's saying replace it with something so much better.
Right. Philippians 4:8. Let me get there real quick, and I can't quote it off the top of my head because I don't.
For nothing.
Nope.
Is that there or?
Oh, I gotta get there.
Everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving.
Close.
Kind of the replacing of anxiety with the prayer.
Give me 1 second. You're close. It's what is good and perfect and pure and holy. Think about those things.
Oh yeah. Same context. Yeah.
Right. If you're thinking about those things, if those things are the focus of your life, where does that leave room for everything else? I can't even turn there because my brain's so. I'm thinking a million miles an hour. If you're thinking about those things, where does that leave your brain? Right.
Go read it. Go read it.
Well, that's what I was trying to turn there, but I'm just like I was fumbling through my pages here.
Okay, so Philippians 4. Start in verse 6 and
are you there?
Yeah.
Well, you go ahead and read it then, because here I
Okay.
am. Philippians 4. I finally got here. I was sitting here.
Philippians 4.
Or I'll get it. I'll do it.
Man,
I'll do it.
this is all good. Start in verse 4 and go through verse 9.
Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God.
That's
and the peace of God, right? And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers,
That's the better. Keep going.
Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. What you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you always.
Practice. Practice is a do word. So you've got replacements, but they're not just intellectual replacements. They are actionable replacements. It's got to be something that you get up off your chair and you go and you do it. You replace. Go ahead.
So a big thing with these addictions, and I know it's a big thing with treating depression, right? And anxiety issues like
Absolutely.
this. They're called coping mechanisms, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do instead of that thing? Instead of the impulses of sadness and depression, what do you do instead? Those are your coping mechanisms. Same with drinking. When you feel like you need to drink, what do you do instead? What is a coping mechanism? So in this case, the coping mechanism, the thing, so it's not, as you know, it's not good enough just to say, just to destroy a system. You have to replace it with an even better system, right?
That's right.
And there's tons of historical examples of that. But cease to do evil. So God knows this. You can't just say cease to do evil because that leaves a vacuum, right? There has to be something that replaces that, and that replacement is learn to do good, and that learning to do good involves thinking about, meditating on, and practicing only that which is good. And he doesn't have, note this, he doesn't have to list it there in Philippians.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't say, okay, instead of gossiping, instead of drinking, instead of, all of these things, he doesn't say, help people, go help an old lady mow her yard. Go buy food for someone that's hungry. Go visit someone that's having a hard time. He doesn't say those things specifically.
No, he doesn't.
Go preach to people, right? He doesn't give a list of things. He just has to tell you what it is. And you know what it is that's good. You know what it is that's commendable. You know what it is honorable, that's lovely, that's just, right? Because there are more of those things that we could be doing than are bad things that we could be doing. We just choose to do the bad things.
So Matthew 12, verse 43. When an unclean spirit goes out of a man, he goes through dry places seeking rest and finds none. Then he says, I will return to my house from which I came. And when he comes, he finds it empty, swept, and put in order. Then he goes and takes with him 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter and dwell there. And the last state of that man is worse than the first. So shall it also be with the wicked generation. Now, here's my point. You say stop drinking or stop smoking. Let's quit picking on drinking, okay? Stop smoking. Okay. You throw away your pack of cigarettes. You say, I'm not going to do it anymore. Okay. Now you've got this hole in your life where you used to fill with smoking. And then the smoking, you thought you threw it away. It comes back to you and it says, wow, look at this big room that is void in this person's life. I'm going to get all my other smoking stuff, my influence, and I'm going to fill it up. And then all of a sudden, before you said, I'm going to quit smoking, you were doing a pack a day. Now you're doing 2 packs a day. It's like it's worse than it was before you even quit smoking.
Yeah, there are so many real life analogies there too of have you heard the term power vacuum? Right? You see it a lot in the Middle East. You see it a lot in the Middle East when
Okay.
when
Yeah.
one terrorist group is annihilated.
Yeah, I was thinking of that too. Yeah, go
and
ahead.
nothing is put in place.
That's right.
What happens? Another terrorist group takes over.
They feel it. Yeah.
Right. I think about a cabin in space, like a pressurized spaceship. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what happens if the hole gets punctured and all the air leaks out.
Yeah.
That leaves a vacuum.
Right.
Well, that's probably not a good example because nothing.
Well, it sucks everything out.
But that's the concept of a vacuum, right? Is that it leaves it empty. Right. So the thought, I think the overall point you're trying to make is that if you don't fill where the evil once was with good, all that will happen is that evil will fill it once again.
That's right, and it's going to be worse than it was before. And your society, your culture, your family is going to progressively get more and more worse. And you're going to look at it and you say, what happened? You stop paying attention for a moment. It's like, wow, how did it get this bad?
Yeah.
And that's why God is saying, you have got to learn to do good. You've got to learn how to replace what you have removed from your life. And if you don't, it's going to come back. It's going to be even worse in your behavior, in your speech, in the way you treat people. And you're going to look at it and you go, what happened? What have I become? And then you're going to have this cycle of frustration where you're not progressing, you're not growing, and you're mad, you're frustrated at yourself, you're angry with yourself, you're depressed with yourself, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. You have got to put behavior in your life that's going to replace the bad behavior. You have to, and it's got to be better. It's got to feel better. It's got to be better. And if you don't, you're doomed.
Sure. Hey, let's try and work our way here to verse 20, and then we'll
good. Yeah,
because it's been about an hour.
Man.
Seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, plead the widow's cause. Right, all examples of good things.
Quick summary: do what's fair. Okay. Seek fairness. Don't treat people based on, don't treat people based on outside appearances, skin color, money that they make, whatever. You don't treat people that way. You treat people fairly. You get to know them. Like what you're talking about, you don't make judgments without knowing what's going on. These brash conclusions that are unfair. Man, we could talk about that a long time. But not only that, but you're no longer going to sit by when you watch people mistreating other people. You don't get to sit by. Now, let's talk to our children for a second, okay? You're at school. You watch a bully bullying someone else, okay? You step up, okay? Go to your teacher. Go to the principal. He says, I'm going to kill you if you do that. Okay, do it. Because God's on your side, all right? And maybe he does kill you. Okay, you've died for God. But you're no longer going to stand by and witness. Yeah, what?
I say he's probably not going to kill you most often.
Probably not going to kill you.
Empty threats, yeah.
Empty threats. But the point is, you're no longer going to stand by and just watch it happen.
I got to say that this is one of the hardest things for me personally. You know me, I'm confrontation averse to the max. Even getting in arguments with my wife, which we never do, but when we do,
you should. Listen.
Even getting in arguments with my wife, I from the moment I see one coming, my hand shakes, right? My hand starts shaking. I can feel myself locking down. I am absolutely, in all cases, terrified of any kind of confrontation. And so to be told this, right, to seek justice, to correct oppression, these are the hardest things for me.
It is.
These are the absolute hardest things to me.
Let's look at relationship. Let's look at marriage for a second. Arguments, they stink. They don't feel good. They're not fun. But it's a long-term investment of communication. You communicate about things that you don't want to communicate so that eventually it's like beating something. It's like when you've got clay and you're molding it into something. I mean, you are working that clay and you are getting it into a form, and that process is not fun. It's not a fun process, but eventually you get to a point where it's like, oh wow, that's a beautiful thing that has been created. And what happens is, if you don't confront it, if you don't communicate, if you don't talk about the things that you don't want to talk about and get through those difficult times, no slamming doors, you sit face to face, and you go head to head with those battles, toe to toe with those battles. That's what they are. You go toe to toe with the battles so that you can work past them, and you come out on the other side, because you have replaced it with something better. We're talking about the exact same thing. What the cause of frustration, the cause of conflict in a marriage, if you don't replace it with something better, the conflict's never going to go away. And so you have to work on those things that are causing the conflict, so that when you get to the other side, ideally, the conflict will become less common. And so, yes, it's so important to not stand by and avoid conflict, but rather to deal with it, to confront it, so that it can be replaced with something better. If there's oppression, that needs to stop and needs to be replaced with peace. And if a father, if the orphan is getting mistreated, that needs to stop, and the orphan needs to be taken care of. If the widow is being mistreated, someone needs to stand up for her, take care of her, so that she has protection, because she's not getting it from a husband. The husband's gone. So you have this thing that is existing that is bad. Don't stand by and just witness it. Replace it with something better. And I think this theme continues of, don't just stop doing bad. Start doing good and replace the bad with something better.
For sure.
Read verse 18, and then
let's go to 20, and then we'll call it good.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Come now, let us reason together, says the Lord. Though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they are red like crimson, they shall become like wool. If you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. But if you refuse and rebel, you shall be eaten by the sword, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken.
Right. And this goes back to God speaking to Cain, where he said, if you do good, you'll be accepted. And if you don't, sin's at the door, and you must rule over it. You must dominate it. I mean, this is the same idea. God is opening the conversation. He's opening. Let's talk about this. Let's reason. Reason is the idea of trying to attain logic. Let's get to the bottom of what is logical. Is it logical that you keep suffering for the things that you're doing? Is that logical? Does that make any sense at all? Does it make sense that I have to keep punishing you, or that allowing things to happen to you?
It goes back to the definition of insanity, right?
It is. It's insanity. And God is basically, he's appealing. He says, does that really make sense? Let's talk logic, for example, for a second. If you do the right thing and I give you everything that you would ever need, I protect you, I give you peace in the land. I mean, I've replaced with so much better than anything you could get from these foreign nations. I've given you victory. I've given you protection. I've given you provision. Doesn't that make so much more sense? Yeah. And I think the same is true today. Christianity, okay? You think about the hope of heaven. You think about the forgiveness of sins. You think about that burden that's being lifted. Isn't that just so much better? Doesn't that just make so much more sense than having to live a life, one, where you're just trying to be a good person by outweighing the good from the bad, but never being able to do that successfully? Isn't it so much better than feeling like that you're inadequate, or feeling like you're lying to yourself by saying, oh, I'm a good person? Every time you lay your head on your pillow, you say, I'm a good person. Isn't it so much better to replace that with the assurance of a faithful God who protects you and protects for you and provides for you and promises you eternal life? Doesn't that make more sense? Okay, let's close. I think
let's call that a day, don't you think so?
Yeah, I think it is.
As always, we hope everyone's doing well. I don't have any announcements personally.
Hopefully people know this, but if they don't, Kimberly Holland's mom passed away. The funeral was on, what is today? It was
Wednesday?
yesterday. The days are blurring together. It was
Oh, yeah.
yesterday. And be praying for Kimberly and Terry. They're really struggling with this, and maybe send them encouragement if you can, because it's really hard on them.
Yeah, it's a tough time to have something like that happen. So
Yes, it really is. Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
Hope you enjoyed that, everybody, and we'll pick up from there next time.
Talk to you later.